June 30th, 1999. The sun is still hanging in the sky, but the heat feels suffocating. A woman drives down a quiet, forgotten road in St. Charles County, surrounded by nothing but endless fields and silence. No traffic, no people, just the sound of her engine cutting through the still air. Then she sees it. Something out of place. Something that doesn't belong. At first, it's just a shape, barely visible through the tall plants. She slows down, squints, unsure if her eyes are playing tricks on her. But something about it feels wrong. She presses the brakes, stops completely. Then slowly, she reverses. That's when it hits her. It's a body. A man lay there, flat on his back, partially hidden between the bushes, like someone didn't even try to cover him properly. For a split second, everything freezes. Then panic takes over. She gasps, stumbles back into her car, hands shaking as she fumbles with the keys. She doesn't stay. She can't. Minutes later, she's at the nearest gas station, dialing 911 from a payphone, her voice trembling as she tries to explain what she just saw. Police arrive fast. They secure the area, expecting the usual signs: struggle marks, blood, anything that explains what happened. But there's nothing. No wounds, no obvious cause of death. No signs that anyone else was even there. Just a man lying in the middle of nowhere. They identify him using fingerprints. His name is Ricky McCormick. He's 41 years old, and strangely, no one has reported him missing. But the detail that truly stops investigators in their tracks isn't the body. It's what's inside his pockets. 2 crumpled sheets of paper, filled with strange combinations of letters and numbers, not words, not sentences, just patterns that make no sense at all. At first, they seem meaningless, but those 2 pages will go on to become one of the most baffling unsolved puzzles ever handled by the FBI, because decades later, no one has been able to read them, and that raises a chilling question. What if the only clue to what really happened is something no one on Earth can understand? There's something about the location that doesn't sit right from the very beginning. Ricky McCormick wasn't found on a roadside or in an area where people usually pass through. His body was lying deep inside a cornfield in West Alton, Missouri. A quiet, isolated stretch of land surrounded by dirt roads, empty fields, and long distances with absolutely nothing in between. This isn't the kind of place you just end up in. There are no nearby bus stops, no stores, no houses within walking distance. And more importantly, Ricky had no way of getting there on his own. He didn't own a car. He didn't know how to drive. And the field where he was found was over 20 kilometers from his home. So, how did he get there? That question alone immediately changes everything. Because if Ricky couldn't reach that location by himself, then someone had to take him there. And if someone took him there, why? When investigators examined the scene, they expected to find at least something: a footprint, a tire mark, a sign of movement. But again, nothing. No evidence of a struggle, no drag marks, no clear indication that a crime had even taken place there. It's almost as if the body had simply appeared, and that detail makes the case even more unsettling, because it suggests something very specific. This wasn't the place where Ricky died. It may have been the place where he was left, But here's where things get even stranger. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened in that exact area. Just a few years earlier, in 1995, the body of a woman was discovered not far from the same location, inside an abandoned house. Another isolated setting, another unexplained death. 2 bodies, same general area, both with more questions than answers. It starts to feel less like coincidence and more like a pattern, a place where something happens and no one sees it, a place where someone could leave a body and walk away without a trace. And despite all of this, despite how suspicious everything looks, the autopsy doesn't give investigators what they need. Because by the time Ricky's body is examined, it's too deteriorated to determine a clear cause of death. No confirmation of violence, no confirmation of natural causes. Officially, his death is labeled as undetermined. So now investigators are left with almost nothing. No cause of death, no witnesses, no evidence. Just one undeniable fact: Ricky McCormick was somewhere he should never have been. And that raises a much darker possibility. What if the real story didn't start in that field, but somewhere no one has been able to trace? If the field doesn't give answers, then the timeline might. Because in the days before his body was found, something about Ricky McCormick's behavior starts to feel off. Not just unusual, but deeply unsettling. It begins on June 25th, just 2 days before his body appears in that cornfield. Ricky walks into a hospital in St. Louis, complaining about chest pain and difficulty breathing. At first, it seems routine. Doctors run basic tests, check his vitals, and find nothing seriously wrong. Physically, he's stable, so they prepare to discharge him. A nurse hands Ricky the paperwork and steps away, expecting him to fill it out like any other patient. But when she comes back 15 minutes later, something strange happens. The papers are still blank, completely untouched. Ricky is just sitting there staring at them. Then he looks up and says something that catches her off guard. "I don't know how to read or write. Can you help me?" The nurse hesitates for a second, but then sits down with him and helps him complete the forms. It's a small moment, easy to overlook. But later, it will raise a serious question, because somehow, this same man will be linked to one of the most complex coded messages the FBI has ever seen. But at that moment, none of that seems important. Ricky is discharged. He should leave, but he doesn't. Instead, he turns to the nurse and asks a quiet, almost desperate question. "Is there any way I could stay here tonight?" That's not normal. Patients don't ask that unless something is wrong. The hospital is calm, not busy, and the nurse, feeling sympathy, tells him he can stay as long as he doesn't cause trouble. Ricky thanks her over and over again. Then he walks to a corner of the waiting room, sits down, crosses his arms, and faces the entrance. And that's where things start to feel off. Hours pass. People come and go. Nurses move around. The night continues. But Ricky doesn't move. He doesn't lie down. He doesn't close his eyes. He doesn't relax. Every time the nurse glances over, he's still there. Same position, same posture, staring directly at the entrance like he's waiting for someone, or maybe afraid someone might walk through that door. Eventually, the nurse's shift ends. A new team comes in. They notice him sitting there and approach, asking if he's okay. Ricky doesn't answer. He just stands up and walks out. No explanation, no hesitation, just gone. Not long after, he makes a phone call to his girlfriend, Sandra. He tells her he spent the night at the hospital. She's concerned, asks him to come over so she can take care of him. But Ricky refuses. He says he's going to grab something to eat first, and that he'll call her later. He never does. Because from that moment on, something changes. Sandra had already been worried about him for weeks. She noticed it before anyone else. Ricky had become paranoid. Whenever someone walked past her apartment door, he would tense up, look nervous, alert, like he thought someone was watching him. And when she asked what was going on, he wouldn't answer, not once. This wasn't even his first hospital visit that week. Just days earlier, he had gone to another hospital with the exact same symptoms: chest pain, trouble breathing. Doctors admitted him, ran tests, observed him again. Nothing, no physical explanation, but whatever was happening to Ricky, it wasn't just in his body. Something was wrong. The last confirmed sightings come from a gas station on June 26th. A worker remembers seeing Ricky buy a hot dog. The next day, June 27th, he comes back again, buys food, leaves, and that's it. After that, Ricky McCormick disappears. No more sightings, no more calls, no trace of where he went or who he was with. It's like he just vanished. But looking back at those final hours, one detail stands out more than anything else. He wasn't acting like someone who was lost. He was acting like someone who was waiting, or worse, like someone who knew something was coming. Up to this point, Ricky's story feels strange, but not necessarily dangerous. That changes the moment investigators start digging into how he was actually living. Because behind the hospital visits, the paranoia, and the silence, there's another side to Ricky McCormick that almost no one was talking about, and it might explain everything. When police speak to his girlfriend, Sandra, she reveals something that immediately shifts the direction of the case. Ricky had been working as a drug courier, not full-time, not as part of some official role, just small jobs here and there, quick money, the kind of work people take when they don't have many options. He would take a bus from St. Louis to Orlando, stay in a cheap motel for a couple of days, then come back with a package and deliver it to someone in the city. No questions asked. At least that's how it started. But after his last trip around mid-June, something changed. Ricky came back different, more nervous, more distant, more afraid. Sandra noticed it immediately. His behavior wasn't just unusual anymore. It felt like fear, real fear, the kind you don't fake, the kind that comes from knowing something you shouldn't. And when she finally pressed him, when she asked who those packages belonged to, Ricky gave her an answer that raised even more concern. He said he was holding them for someone named Baja. That name mattered because Baja wasn't just some random contact. He was connected to a gas station. Ricky used to work at a place that already had a reputation for trouble. The station was run by two brothers. One of them kept a low profile, quiet, careful. The other was the exact opposite, impulsive, aggressive. known for causing problems, and already on the radar of law enforcement. Not long before Ricky's death, that same man had been arrested after attacking a homeless individual. According to reports, it started as an argument, but quickly escalated into violence. Charges were filed. A court date was set, but the case never made it that far because just weeks before the trial, the key witness was found shot inside his own car. No witnesses, no arrests. Case closed, and just like that, another loose end disappeared. When detectives connect Ricky to this same environment, the situation becomes much more serious. This isn't just about a missing man anymore. This is about someone who may have been caught in the middle of something far bigger and far more dangerous than he understood, and Ricky wasn't exactly in a position to protect himself. He didn't have money. He didn't have stability. He didn't have strong connections. He was vulnerable, the kind of person who could be used and then discarded. And if he really was moving packages for people involved in that kind of world, there's a possibility he saw something he wasn't supposed to see or learned something he wasn't supposed to know. And in that world, that can be enough. But just when investigators start to believe they're getting closer to the truth, two names surface, and what they're connected to makes the situation even more dangerous. At this point, investigators finally have something they didn't have before. Names. Real people, real connections, real potential motives, and for the first time, the case starts to look less like a mystery and more like something that could actually be solved. The first name is the one Ricky mentioned himself, Baja, a man already known for his violent behavior, someone who didn't just lose control, but seemed comfortable crossing the line. Police had dealt with him before, and not in minor situations. The assault case was still fresh. A homeless man claimed Baja attacked him after trying to force him out of the area. It wasn't just an argument, it turned physical, aggressive. Charges were filed. The case was moving forward. Then suddenly, everything stopped because the victim, the only person who could testify, was found shot inside his own car. No suspects, no witnesses, no trial, just silence. And that silence sends a clear message to anyone paying attention. People around Baja didn't always get a chance to speak, so when detectives connect Ricky to him, it's impossible to ignore. But Baja isn't the only name that comes up. There's someone else, someone even more dangerous, Gregory Knox. Unlike Baja, Gregory isn't just known for being aggressive. He's known for being deeply connected. The kind of person whose name shows up again and again in serious investigations. An informant tells police about a rumor, not proof, not evidence, but a rumor that's too specific to dismiss. A man matching Ricky's description, killed, and Gregory's name tied to it. That's enough for detectives to act. Now they have two potential suspects, one with a history of violence and intimidation, another with alleged links to multiple serious crimes, both connected to the same environment Ricky had recently been involved in. It feels like the pieces are finally lining up. So police move in, they begin surveillance. They watch the gas station. They monitor movements. They track routines. They observe who comes and goes. Days turn into weeks. They're waiting for something, anything that connects these men to Ricky. A mistake. a slip, a conversation, but it never comes. No physical evidence, no direct links, no witnesses willing to talk. Both men have alibis. And without something solid, the case can't move forward. Just like that, everything stalls again. The suspects remain free, and Ricky McCormick's case starts slipping into the same place as so many others. Unanswered, unresolved, slowly forgotten, but just when it seems like the investigation has hit a dead end, something overlooked from the very beginning suddenly comes back into focus. Two pieces of paper, ignored at first, almost dismissed completely. But what they contain might be more important than anything else, because those notes don't just raise questions, they might hold the only answers left. At the beginning of the investigation, the notes didn't seem important. Just two crumpled sheets of paper folded and tucked inside Ricky's pocket, covered in random letters and numbers that didn't form words, didn't follow sentences, didn't make any sense. To the officers at the scene, they looked like nothing more than scribbles, something easy to ignore. And for a while, that's exactly what happened. The focus stayed on the body, the location, the possible suspects. The notes were simply logged as part of his belongings and pushed to the side. But as the days passed and every other lead went nowhere, those 2 pages started to stand out. Because when everything else fails, even the smallest detail becomes important. Eventually, someone takes a closer look, and that's when the tone of the case begins to shift. These weren't just random marks. There was structure, lines written in uppercase, repeating patterns, sequences that looked intentional, not accidental. It didn't read like nonsense anymore. It looked like a system. And once that possibility enters the investigation, everything changes. Because if those pages contain a message, then Ricky wasn't just a victim. He was part of something, maybe trying to remember something, maybe trying to hide something, or maybe trying to warn someone. That's when the decision is made to send the notes somewhere far beyond local investigators. They're handed over to a specialized unit at the FBI. A group trained to do one thing: break codes. This isn't a normal department. These are analysts who have worked on encrypted messages tied to espionage, organized crime, and some of the most complex ciphers ever encountered. If there's meaning hidden in those pages, they're the ones most likely to find it. When the notes arrive, the reaction is immediate. This is not random. That much is clear. The patterns are too consistent. The repetition too deliberate. Certain letters appear again and again, almost like separators. Some sequences repeat in ways that suggest structure, rules. Whoever wrote this was following something, but then comes the contradiction that makes the case even more confusing. Ricky McCormick couldn't read or write. At least, that's what he told the nurse. And according to his family, it's true. So, how does someone who struggles with basic writing produce something that trained analysts recognize as a coded message? That question splits the investigation in two. Either Ricky wrote the notes, which means he created a system of communication no one has been able to break, or he didn't write them at all, which opens a much darker possibility. Someone else gave them to him, and if that's true, then Ricky may not have been carrying random papers. He may have been carrying something important, something meant to be delivered, something someone didn't want, found, And if those pages are connected to the world, Ricky had recently stepped into the drugs, the people, the tension. Then decoding them isn't just about curiosity anymore. It could explain why he ended up dead. From that moment on, those 2 sheets of paper stop being a minor detail. They become the center of the entire case, because now there's only one real question left. What do they say? And the answer to that question turns out to be far more difficult than anyone expected. Once the FBI takes control of the notes, expectations are high. If anyone can figure this out, it's them. These aren't amateurs. This is a specialized cryptography unit. People trained to recognize patterns, break ciphers, and decode messages that were never meant to be understood. They worked on cases involving spies, organized crime, even historical codes once thought impossible to crack. So when they look at Ricky's notes and say, "This is a real code," that means something. They begin the process the same way they always do. First, they count symbols. Then they analyze frequency. They look for repetition, structure, spacing, anything that suggests a system behind the chaos. And almost immediately, they find patterns. Certain letters appear far more often than others. Some sequences repeat across both pages. There are clear signs of intention. This isn't random writing. It follows rules. But here's the problem. Even with those patterns, nothing fits. They test substitution ciphers, where each letter represents another. Nothing. They try transposition methods, rearranging letters based on a hidden structure. Still nothing. They run computational models, simulate known encryption systems, compare patterns against languages, locations, names, and every time they hit the same wall. No result. And that's unusual, because even the most complex codes usually give something: a partial word, a recognizable structure, a clue. Here, there's nothing. It's like the code is speaking a language no one understands. As the months pass, frustration builds. Then years, the case becomes something rare inside the FBI, not just unsolved, but resistant, unbreakable. By 2009, more than a decade has gone by. The notes are still sitting there untouched, unreadable. So the FBI makes a decision they almost never make. They go public. In 2011, they release the notes to the world. For the first time, anyone can see them, analyze them, try to decode them. It's a call for help. And the response is immediate. Thousands of people jump in. Cryptographers, hobbyists, code breakers, curious minds from all over the world. Online forums explode with theories. Reddit threads grow overnight. Blogs, videos, discussions, everyone has an idea. Some think the numbers refer to bus routes Ricky used. Others believe it's a map, a hidden path describing his last movements. Some argue it's a criminal code, instructions disguised in plain sight. There's even a theory that specific letter combinations translate into phrases like "no cash exchanged," suggesting some kind of illegal transaction. Others go in a completely different direction. They believe there is no code at all, that the notes are simply the result of a mental condition, something like compulsive writing, where a person fills pages with patterns that look meaningful but aren't. The debate splits into two sides. genius-level encryption, or complete randomness. Even experts can't agree. And that's what makes this case so frustrating. Because both sides have evidence. The structure suggests intention, but the lack of progress suggests the opposite. Years go by, and still no one cracks it. Not the FBI, not professional cryptographers, not thousands of people working together online. Nothing works, and that leaves one final possibility hanging in the air. What if the code isn't impossible to break? What if it was never meant to be broken at all? Because after everything, the suspects, the investigation, the theories, we're still left with the same unanswered question, one that has refused to go away for decades, and it leads directly to the most unsettling part of this entire story. More than 2 decades have passed since that summer evening in 1999. The cornfield is still there, quiet, empty, unchanged. But the questions surrounding Ricky McCormick haven't moved at all. No confirmed cause of death, no one ever charged, no clear explanation for how he ended up miles away from home. And those 2 pages? Still unsolved. Despite everything, the FBI, professional cryptographers, thousands of people across the internet, no one has been able to say with certainty what those notes mean. Not a single verified solution, and that's what keeps this case alive. Because usually, time brings answers. Witnesses come forward. Evidence resurfaces. Patterns become clear, but here, time has only made things more confusing. Think about it. A man who reportedly couldn't read or write, connected to a message no one can decode, a body found in a place he couldn't reach, with no trace of how he got there, a life tied to dangerous people, but no proof linking them to his death. Every path leads somewhere, but never all the way. And maybe the most unsettling part isn't what we don't know, it's what we almost understand. Because every theory feels close enough to be believable, but never enough to be proven. Maybe Ricky created his own system, something only he could understand, a personal code that died with him. Or maybe he was carrying a message for someone else, something he didn't even realize the importance of, a message that was never meant to be found, or worse, a message that someone made sure would never be understood. And then there's the possibility no one likes to consider, that the notes don't mean anything at all, that they're just patterns, written by a mind trying to make sense of something we'll never see. But if that's true, then we're left with something even more unsettling, a death with no explanation, no message, no reason, just silence. Whatever the truth is, it's locked somewhere between those 2 pages. And the final days of a man who seemed to know something wasn't right. Maybe he was waiting for someone, maybe he was trying to escape something, or maybe he was trying to leave something behind, something important, something we still haven't figured out. And until those pages are understood, Ricky McCormick's story doesn't really end. It just stops.